Again, welcome to everyone. Today, our focus is on the Thriving Economy chapter, and our planners are going to walk us through the highlights of this chapter so that everyone can get a better understanding about what's included, and we have some other staff on hand to answer questions. You can see at the bottom of your Zoom tool that we have the Q&A enabled. So we ask that you add any questions that you have to that Q&A tool so we can keep track of them and make sure that we answer them during the meeting. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to our planning team to get us started.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ben Holt with the county's long-range planning team, and I'll be presenting today on our draft chapter for Thriving Economy. For today's session, we're going to provide an overview of AC44, including the current project status. We'll also provide an overview of the comprehensive plan organization, and then we'll dive into the recently published draft chapter on Thriving Economy. We'll share the chapter content, which includes the goals, objectives, and actions that will be used for implementation. We'll then share a sneak peek of where we're headed next, and we'll follow that with a Q&A session to respond to any questions that you may have about the Thriving Economy chapter. So quick snapshot of where we've been. Our AC44 project is divided into 4 phases. In phase 1, we developed the AC44 guiding principles to establish what kind of community we'd like to be over the next 20 years. And that is a community that is green and resilient, welcoming and equitable, thriving and prosperous, and connected and accessible. In phase 1, we also utilized a land use build-out analysis to study our development area's capacity, as well as a review of the county's growth management policy. In phase 2, we drafted the goals and objectives for each topic chapter, and we developed our planning toolkits, which we are using to guide land use and transportation planning. This includes our activity centers that will be located within the county's development area. Public engagement has been a critical aspect throughout the AC44 process. Information about AC44 has been shared within the local media stories, community conversation news segments on NBC 29, and our county's social media posts, podcasts, and published videos. All told, our AC44 website has received more than 34,000 visitors, and we've had more than 70,000 opened e-newsletters. More than 2,000 people have participated through a combination of public meetings, hosted engagement events, both online and in person, and also our 21 published online questionnaires. So now we're going to provide a snapshot of how the plan itself is organized. The AC44 comprehensive plan document is organized into 4 main parts. Part 1 is our community vision, which includes an introduction section, context and history for the county, and also the plan's purpose, vision, and guiding principles. Part 2 covers our growth management framework with an introduction and details about the growth management policy and how it is applied within the rural area and the development areas of the county. It will also cover the ongoing development areas utilization review process. Part 3 is the implementation section of the plan, where our 10 topic chapters are contained. Each chapter will include an introduction, a topic goal statement that sets a community vision for the topic, and the objectives and actions that will be utilized for implementation. Part 4 will be the appendix section with supporting materials that will include metrics for measuring implementation progress, as well as the process for updating area plans. We'll also include overlapping and associated plans, such as the county's economic development and housing plans, as well as other reference plans ranging from local to state and regional in scale. And we'll also have a project report that recaps the AC44 process and our community engagement summary. And now on to our Thriving Economy chapter. The Thriving Economy chapter encourages collaboration at the local, state, and regional level, support for new and growing local businesses, the importance of building and educating an empowered workforce, and the importance of land use and infrastructure that supports economic development. The economic chapter supports and reinforces the initiatives of Project Enable, which is the strategic plan produced by the county's Economic Development Office. This plan was last updated in 2022, and it provides guidance for key industries that generate economic growth for the county and the surrounding area. Critical aspects of a healthy economy include a variety of business types and sizes. It is important for the local economy to generate a net gain of resources and spending coming into the area. Achieving this inflow involves a balance of traded sector businesses, which are often larger employers that produce goods or services locally and sells them elsewhere, bringing financial resources into the community. The local economy also includes non-traded sector businesses, which serve the local community and circulates financial resources within, such as a restaurant or coffee shop. Land use is an important aspect of the thriving economy, as it is critical to have land and infrastructure that supports employment-generating uses. A tier analysis conducted during the recent build-out report indicated that the county contains limited sites within our development areas that include the appropriate zoning and the necessary infrastructure in place to support flex or light industrial and other employment-generating uses. Our small area plans include designated employment district zones that are intended to provide land use designations that support office, light industrial, research, and development activities. By June of 2024, the county was able to leverage $877,000 in local dollars to secure a total of $1.8 million in state grants for the support and expansion of 10 existing local businesses. These grants are expected to generate 491 career ladder jobs. Partnerships at both the North Fork Discovery Park and the county land acquisition adjacent to Rivanna Station will help retain and grow vital businesses within the biotech and defense industries for years to come. If you would like to learn more about our thriving economy, you can visit the Thriving Economy page under the Engage AC44 Phase 3 website, and we can make that URL available in the chat. So now a quick look at our goals, our objectives, and actions. Chapter implementation is comprised of a goal statement that provides an overarching vision, objectives that set targets to accomplish, along with the actions that will allow us to achieve these objectives. The goal statement for the chapter includes employee empowerment through education and career ladder potential, the unique application of economic growth, land use, and infrastructure within the development areas versus the rural area, and the overlap with other topics such as community services, housing, historic resources, arts, and culture. The objectives include the aforementioned economic strategic plan, the availability of land and infrastructure to accommodate economic growth, as well as retaining and expanding businesses, workforce training, and career growth, reducing barriers to workforce participation. The actions that articulate the strategies that will be used to achieve the objectives, including land use for employment growth, especially within our activity centers and employment districts, providing infrastructure, site readiness, and leveraging grants to support economic growth. The process for new development review pertaining to economic uses and utilizing our zoning ordinance update to facilitate and encourage workforce participation. And before we begin our question and answer session, we'll take a quick look at what's ahead. Throughout the rest of Phase 3, we will continue to publish the remaining draft chapters for the various topics. Upcoming chapters include the topics of historic, cultural, scenic resources, environmental stewardship, transportation, and housing. Scheduled events will include continued work sessions with the Planning Commission, Board of Supervisors, as well as future lunch and learns for upcoming chapters and quarterly scheduled community engagement check-ins. We encourage your participation as we move forward. So we'll continue to announce the upcoming events through our e-newsletters, the Engage Albemarle website, and the county's calendar. On our website, we'll continue to publish the draft chapters along with condensed chapter summary, video presentations, and recordings of each of the lunch and learns. Published chapters will include links to share your comments on the planned actions after reviewing the chapter materials. And now it is your turn to share your feedback and ask any questions of staff that you have about the Thriving Economy chapter.
Thanks, Ben. So like I said, you have the opportunity to use the Q&A tool that is in your Zoom platform. And then if you feel more comfortable raising your hand and sharing your question verbally, you can do that as well. And I would invite you to do that, and I will pay attention. Thank you. Well, Ben, I'll ask a question. Can you give us a little bit of insight into the team and how the different strategies were developed, or the actions rather?
Sure. So the process of writing each chapter, and especially the action steps that we're using for implementation, it's really a joint effort. So the long-range planning team has been working closely with our economic development office to create the plan content. And as we mentioned during the presentation, there's a reinforcing aspect of this chapter of the comprehensive plan and our economic strategic plan. And again, the currently published version is known as Project Enable. And you can find that on our economic development website.
Okay, so I see two questions. One question is, could you elaborate on the target businesses and the types of infrastructure that they need? For example, the software types would need high-speed internet that is reliable. Other considerations might be affordable childcare. Thank you for that question.
Give me a moment. I'm opening the chapters.
Hey, Serena.
See, yeah, if you want to introduce yourself and share if you have some reflections on that question.
Yeah, hey, Serena. This is JT Newberry. I'm the Deputy Director of the Economic Development Office. Thank you for the question. And I think just to quickly start, the county has 4 adopted target industries that we focus on as an office. And that's based on data around the types of jobs that align with the strategic plan of our community that best meet the assets that we have here. So those would include the biotech and medical device sector, the agribusiness and food processing sector, business and financial services sector, and then the IT and defense and security sector. And so each of those have various needs related to infrastructure. The one about high-speed internet is a great one. There was an announcement earlier this week about wet labs for our biotech community that will be available at North Fork through a partnership with the state. That is a specific type of infrastructure that is expensive to build and difficult for our startup community to absorb those costs. So through partnering with the city, the state, the University of Virginia Foundation, we're working together to provide that kind of infrastructure for that targeted sector. Agribusinesses, they often need access to water, for processing, and good transportation and logistics infrastructure for shipping and receiving materials. Those are some just a few examples that come to mind, but each of those sectors has unique needs. Just to say that.
Thanks, JT. So I have Don Long. I'm going to ask you to unmute and see about asking your question.
Hey, thanks for doing this. Just so you know, I'm the chair of the Economic Development Authority, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to present this. And I guess one comment, and I haven't spent a lot of time looking at this yet, but in one of the objectives, objective 2 talks about diversity of sites within the development area to target industries. And I think, one of the areas obviously that we're focused on, and I see is the wine area and other tourist oriented economic activities. And I think we need to realize that those are not happening necessarily in the development areas. So I think, I'm not sure whether that needs to change that, but I just throw that out there that we need to think about the agritourism and those sorts of things as well in terms of what in terms of those objectives and how we can support those. Not really a question, more of a comment.
Well, thanks for joining us, Don. JT, would you like to add on to that at all?
No, I think as usual, Chair Long has always been provided great feedback for us to think about. So that's a great comment that I think the team will take into consideration as the draft moves forward.
One of the next questions that came in was, Francis read the chapter and noticed there's workforce training mentioned and included in the chapter. Ben, can you address when affordable housing and housing will be a topic that we talk about in one of these lunch and learns?
Yes. So as you hinted at, the topics of affordable housing and addressing homelessness is going to be within our housing chapter, and that's going to be published later this spring. Looking at our current schedule, we're hoping to roll out that chapter towards the end of March, and then we'll have subsequent work sessions to review that with Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. So housing is obviously a topic that's got a lot of interest and for good reason.
Thank you. The next question that came in was, what are the incentives for backfilling empty storefronts and commercial spaces throughout the area? Is the comprehensive plan the place where we see incentives being mentioned, and how would that happen?
Sure. The comprehensive plan does encouragement, redevelopment and growth. I think JT could probably best answer about how these reutilized spaces may be used, what they can provide in terms of economic growth, and maybe any sort of incentives.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So the county has adopted policies on matching incentives at the state level. So for anyone that any company that's within a targeted industry, if they're planning to make significant investment either in growing their employee base or in expanding their operations and making large capital investments, we can work with the state to match state incentives for that. Typically within our targeted sectors, those projects are competitive with other states across the country. So, just to give one example, when Willow Tree was relocating from the city of Charlottesville and ultimately landed at Woolen Mills, they were looking at locations in North Carolina and Colorado and Ohio. And so the state of Virginia recognized them as a high value employer, and we worked alongside them to provide the necessary financial incentive to make it worthwhile to stay here and grow here instead of going somewhere else.
JT, maybe you can dig in a little bit to this idea of the empty storefronts. What role does economic development, what role does your office play in identifying locations that might be appropriate, like these empty storefronts?
Yeah, so when I hear the term empty storefront, I think a lot about retail areas. The Economic Development Office has not historically to date, we have not been focused on retail. There are lots of resources that we can connect property owners and businesses that may be interested in those kinds of spaces, but the Economic Development Office would likely be referring those opportunities to other partners that we have. We're most often working with people who are going to be in commercial office settings or light industrial settings. Those typically tend to have the largest employment base and are likely to make the greatest economic impact in our area. It's not to say that our strategic plan to be adopted may not have strategies for that. But typically, when there's strong institutional employers in an area, the retail development follows. So just to give one example, when Aldi went into the Albemarle Square shopping center, they reached out to the Economic Development Office to learn more about the demographics and the financial characteristics of households within that area. And so that type of information can be compelling for a retailer that's thinking about coming to our community. But we're not likely to be, for example, some economic development offices go to conferences across the country to try to recruit the latest retail or to attract large retailers to come to their area. But that's not a strategy that we've focused on.
Thanks, JT. I'm so glad you made the time to join us today.
Sure.
Our next question is, can the AC44 plan adapt quickly to the changing federal employment outlook? So Ben, maybe you can take a step back from that and talk about the flexibility in the comprehensive plan and the purpose of the comprehensive plan in terms of community land use. Hey, Ben, I think you're muted.
I should be unmuted right now. Can you
You're
hear me?
good. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, better. Great. So yeah, the comprehensive plan really dives into land use, our county's growth management policy. And with that land use, as we mentioned during the presentation, the bulk of our employment supporting uses, commercial uses, light industrial and flex space, that's located within our development areas. And that's because we have that supporting infrastructure in place in terms of water, sewer, roads, the things that are necessary for, larger buildings with multiple businesses, many employees. And, with our build out analysis that we conducted, it did suggest that we have adequate space within our current development areas for the next 20 years to include both as commercial type activities and housing. Especially that we use that land efficiently. Yes, JT?
Ben, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Folks are having trouble hearing you. I'm guessing your microphone source might have switched.
Okay, let me check that out real quick.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, I'll try to speak up. So with the land use guidance that the comprehensive plan provides, we're hoping to ensure that we keep that adequate supply of land that can be used for these employment generating uses. And JT could probably go into more detail about those target industries and how they'll be leveraged for continued economic growth.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Serena, I wonder if you could repeat the question, just for.
Well, I'm having a sense that what I heard from Ben is just it takes time to implement. And that's right now we are seeing the situation with changing federal employment outlook, which has implications for a lot of different areas. And so I guess the question is really how can the AC44 plan adapt or flex to changing needs in our community?
Sure. Thanks, Serena. I appreciate you rephrasing the question. I got kind of sidetracked with the problems with the microphone. But, you know, looking at the big picture, the comprehensive plan is a roadmap. It provides general direction. And it's also a living document. So we're going to continue to update our comprehensive plan. This current effort, which we're hoping to have published towards the end of the year, it's the major overhaul to our existing comprehensive plan. So it's the new 2.0 version. But, you know, obviously over the next 20 years, and that's sort of like the vision period for this comprehensive plan, conditions will change. So you may see some of that content within each individual chapters, like this economic chapter, continue to be updated. And, you know, JT and the rest of the economic development team, they're going to play a critical role in being flexible, adapting to those conditions. Obviously, there's a lot of changes that are occurring at the federal level now, and it's yet to be seen some of those economic impacts over the coming years. I'll let JT jump in and add more detail.
No, that's great, Ben. And, you know, I think I would just, as probably many people on the call recognize, you know, federal spending is a significant portion of Virginia's overall budget. The, you know, our employment base is relatively heavy on public sources, including the federal level. And so I think it's really important that our comp plan include flexibility for us. You know, our strategic plan will be seeking to diversify our local economic, you know, our tax base, and having, you know, recognizing that in the comp plan and ensuring there's flexibility to accommodate new industries. You know, we think about, you know, AI. We were talking about broadband connectivity. You know, the economy will continue to grow and change and evolve over the next 20 years. And so having broad statements that can support our ability to support those industries will be really important.
Thanks, JT. There's another question that came in, and it's, is our airport planning to support the new air taxis that are close to commercial operation? So Ben, I'm going to ask if you can share the relationship between, I think, the airport authority and our planning effort and how they intersect, because I think their planning for those taxis might be outside of the scope of AC44, but I'm sure there's some relationships that you can illuminate for us.
I'm actually going to hand it over to JT. I really think he's going to be better positioned to answer.
Well, I'm going to keep the fun going. We have a member of the airport authority on the call. If I could call on Don Long to maybe talk about that.
Sure, JT. I wondered if it was going to come back to me.
Yeah.
So it just, I am no longer on the airport authority,
Wow.
but I was term limited off, but I'm happy to talk about that. The airport planning process is really governed by the FAA, and so that's where that information takes place. And the airport's always looking at things that are coming up and trying to plan for those ideas. You know, things like electric planes or air taxis, those sorts of things. But a lot of that's driven by the FAA and what the FAA is able to provide for. I mean, the airport has limited space for additional, there's only one runway. There's not, obviously the topography we have around here is not particularly flat, but I think that's one of the things that's being considered is as those opportunities arise, can the airport take advantage of them and use them? And I think that's certainly something that's considered. And just so everybody knows, the airport's actually not a part of Albemarle County. It's not part of city government. It's an independent authority, and it's self-sustaining. Tax dollars from Albemarle County or the city don't go into it. And the governing body has a member from the Albemarle County government. Currently, the county executive, somebody from Charlottesville, who's the city manager, Sam Sanders, and then one independent member picked by both the county and the city, and that's Pace Lochte, who recently joined. So hopefully that gives a little background.
Thank you. Shawnee Baker, thank you for your patience. I'm going to ask you to unmute here and share your question with the group.
Am I?
Yep, we
Good
can hear you.
afternoon.
Hello.
Hello. I am really listening and speaking on behalf of the equestrian horse community in the county. We became aware about a month ago of a number of changes that seem to tie together between the AC44 land use, the ag forestal plan, and state versus county plan for our parks, such as Biscuit Run. And so we have attended weekly a number of meetings trying to understand what is the change and how it's going to impact all of us. Comparing it to the airport and the defense industries and things, of course, we are a much smaller group. However, this area has a significant number of businesses that do bring economic boon, benefit, taxes to our area. I myself manage a successful saddlery shop. I've been there 18 years and the business was there 10 years prior to me. The barn that I ride at services more than 80 families every single week. And every one of those families is then responsible for helping to support our local feed suppliers, tax stores, farriers, veterinarians, farm workers, the equipment manufacturers, tractor repair people, and all the other local industries and people who are associated with the horse program. We have 4 or 5 4-H clubs, all who are involved. There's 2 or 3 pony clubs. I know when people come from all over Virginia to come shop where I work, they buy gas, stay in town for lunch, ride at the available facilities we have here in town, utilize the parks such as Pretty Creek, and hopefully in the future, Biscuit Run. So we are concerned about changes that we have been seeing, and we're still quite confused about how they all tie together. So that's why we're going to continue attending these meetings. But I wanted to make sure you were aware of how large this group is and the economic impact that we already have, and that we would like to continue to develop this area to support this equestrian community and to grow it and to benefit everyone who lives here.
Thank you for attending, Shawnee. Is there a question that you might have, or feel free to share those questions also via email. But thank you for attending today.
Surely.
All right, I don't see any other questions right now. Feel free to raise your hand or ask a question in the Q&A module. Oh, and I see a couple questions that just came in and they're kind of lengthy. So give us a second to read them and see who can answer them best. Ben, I'm gonna lean on you to see what the
Sure.
question is here.
Yeah. I was just reviewing this first question. Hang on, let me reread the end of that statement because I think that's where the real question. I don't know that I'd agree with that statement that the board had issue with logical limits about our infrastructure. That falls under our extensive growth management discussions. So, you know, our growth management policy, AC44 reinforces that growth management policy where we, you know, we really are guiding concentrated growth within the development areas. Because that's where our water and sewer service areas are located. That's where we have road network in place to move people and goods around. So the board is committed to maintaining those development areas boundaries, trying to use land efficiently. And we are discussing some criteria for future evaluation of those boundaries and potential expansion. That being said, when we talk about that, it tends to make people nervous as if we're pushing for growth and expansion of the development areas. That's not the case. It's more that we need to take a look at what sort of aspects of the development areas that we need to constantly analyze just so that we're positioned to make decisions decades into the future. And then there was something in the question about aligning with equity and sustainability. Yeah, that I'd say that is reinforced by that growth management model. You know, part of the directing growth within the development areas is so that we can keep the rural areas rural. And that's where a lot of our environmental resources are located, forests, which are, again, so important for carbon sequestration and climate resilience. And then I don't know if anybody is poised to answer the second question. I'll need another minute to look at that one.
I'd like to just comment on that second comment that really highlights the importance of our airport and the value that it provides to our business community. And I couldn't agree more with the sentiment.
Yeah, JT, so because our audience, the chat came into the panelists and not in the Q&A module, can you just rephrase the comment that came in?
Yeah, thank you for alerting me to that. So the comment just broadly says that as a future or current business person, you know, I might use the airport to move supplies or other inputs for my industry, to export my finished product to regional, national, and international markets. I use the airport for bringing in visiting professionals or business partners, and view it as really essential infrastructure that drives decisions about investment and expansion. And I just wanted to say that really aligns with my experience. Our business community appreciates the strength of our airport and constantly touts it as a differentiator that we should be looking at as a way of enhancing the opportunities here.
Thanks. And I'm sorry, I was trying to copy the comment to share it back into the chat and I can't do that. So I'm sorry about that. We had to just ask JT to rephrase it. We have another question that just came in, and I'm going to read it. With 95% of the county designated as rural, and with smaller farms more prevalent, and with agribusiness being one of the 4 target areas, can you speak to the ways in which you envision supporting the rural economy and in particular smaller farms?
And I'll let JT field this one if you want to jump in. I think you could speak to this in greater detail than I could.
Yeah, so I think maybe one way for me to answer this question is to just talk about some of the ways we've done that over the past few years. So I mentioned that the county has adopted incentive policies that align with the state. And so a number of the incentives we've issued have been for agricultural businesses. And, one that comes to mind most recently, we worked with a business that specializes in beekeeping and honey processing. And so we worked actually with Fluvanna County to pull down money from the state so that they could this business could have a mobile trailer to go to multiple farms throughout our community and throughout the region to help them process honey in a way that meets the state's regulations so that it can be sold at farmers markets and that kind of thing. The comp plan for a very long time has talked about what can we do to better connect those rural producers with consumers within the development area. And I think, actually just this morning, we were talking about how could we find a place for one of our very small rural producers to have more locations within the development area to come and make their product available, whether that would be through a farmer's market type thing or just a pickup spot, if people were ordering online and, they couldn't drive all the way out to where the farm is, but they could have a development area based location to pick it up. So I think connecting to the state and federal government for financial resources, and then continuing to look for outlets for small rural producers that want to connect with consumers in the development area is how I see us playing a role in that.
Sure. Thank you, JT. That's really helpful. And I'll just chime in from a comp plan standpoint. Yeah, within our rural areas chapter, the county supports agricultural and forestal use throughout the rural area. And we have a concurrent effort to update our zoning ordinance. So that is underway as well. And that will be completed after the comprehensive plan is finished. And the reason we timed it that way is so that the comprehensive plan could provide direction. And so that zoning ordinance update is going to take a detailed look at different types of land uses, businesses, and what may be allowed by right with zoning. And you may see some changes that provide support to those sorts of businesses that are involved in things like agricultural processing.
Thanks, Ben. Another question came in asking, what about the area of financial services as a potential growth area? And JT, I'm going to ask you to answer that and also put in a little plug about the current economic development strategic plan effort. I'm going to share that link to that project page here in the chat. And then JT, go ahead and do your thing.
Yeah, so I think that our area is well suited to accommodate the future growth of financial services in our region. When the person that commented earlier about the equine industry, I thought she did a really good job of talking about the chain of impact of commerce, as you go from riding the horses to to all the different suppliers that are a part of that. And as she went through it, I think that for that target industry, we have a sufficient supply of the kind of space that they need. We have a sufficient supply of the kind of talent that they're looking for through institutions like PVCC and UVA. The high quality of life is very attractive to financial firms that can really locate anywhere. They're providing their services all over the world. We are well suited for having great schools and access to the outdoors, everything that people really love about this area. Many financial services companies find it compelling to be here. I think we're well positioned for that to continue to be a strength.
Thanks, JT. We have another question that came in about a fun topic. Can you talk about the outdoor recreation economy in Albemarle? So marathons, road race, cycling events, mountain biking, the relationship to local resources like the Shenandoah National Park and Blue Ridge Parkway, and what are the implications for the comprehensive plan and economic development when you think about those types of components of our economy?
Sure, thank you. I'll start by answering that question, and then I'll let JT or one of the other planning staff jump in if they have anything else to add. That's a really good question, and it kind of overlaps multiple topic chapters. We just had a work session with the Planning Commission on Parks and Recreation earlier this week. That topic came up. It's definitely something that's important to our planning commissioners and our board of supervisors. We recognize that outdoor industry generates a lot of revenue. It brings tourists into our areas. We're very lucky to have the Shenandoah National Park abutting our county. And, we have periodic events like races, 5Ks, bike events that bring people into the county. So with our Parks and Recreation chapter, we want to encourage a variety of uses. Our recreation economy spans both our urban area, that development area we discussed, and the rural area. And, some of the things that we're doing that may have an impact on that. One of the comp plan recommendations is that we continue to expand our Rivanna trail system, and that includes a greenway walking trail that runs along the riverbank. We're also trying to get new canoe and kayak boating access points. So as we continue to provide support for those types of amenities, it should boost the outdoor recreation economy. JT, I didn't know if you had anything else to add.
Yeah, I think I would just add, the county participates with the city in the Charlottesville-Albemarle Convention and Visitors Bureau. That they really lead the tourism efforts in our region. And I think they do a fantastic job. And access to the outdoors is a big part of what attracts talent to come to our area. Some of the companies that are considering growing here, they need to put their best face forward in recruiting the best talent to come and work for them. And where we really can shine are these kind of that outdoor recreation, access to the national parks and all the amenities that we have around here. That's oftentimes what makes people fall in love and say, I'm gonna grow my business right here. This community has a commitment to, letting me get into the outdoors quickly, versus, many of the areas we're competing with are larger metro areas that may have other types of amenities that are interesting, but our commitment to the outdoors sets us apart.
Thank you, JC.
Yeah.
Okay, this question, we might need to defer this to the housing topic, the housing chapter. So the question is, equity and being welcome to all income levels is one of the plan's goals. Are requirements or restrictions included in the plan with actual price or cost limits when it comes to residential development and providing affordable housing? Ben, you can just let me know. Should we defer this one to the housing topic? We can respond to it within the platform itself, or do you feel like you could answer this?
Yeah. I just found the separate question answer box where this was submitted. Give me a second to read through it, and I'll allow another member of our long range team to jump in and answer this question if they have some details they're ready to provide. I don't know, Tanya or Tori, you had something to weigh in.
I'm going to jump in while you're thinking, Ben. A question came in about, is there a transcript of the economic development strategic meeting the other night? And then, so JT, I'll let you answer that. And then the other question was, can you share this recording of this particular Lunch and Learn? And yes, we post the Lunch and Learn recordings following, give me a day or two to do that. But by tomorrow, we will have this recording available on the website.
And JT, if you don't mind, I'm going to jump in and answer that initial question now that I've had a chance to read it. And then you can go into the details about that strategic meeting that was held the other night. Yes, this is the type of detail that's going to be more articulated within the housing chapter. And, you know, this overlaps with our housing department. So kind of like Project Enable is a economic strategic plan. We have a housing plan, Housing Albemarle, that is reinforced by the comprehensive plan. And that team, we're working to, you know, develop and update our affordable housing policy. So that will dictate the number of affordable units that will be created when developers come forth with a project. That would be like a larger single family subdivision or multifamily housing. There will be a certain number of units that they have to provide that are more affordable. And because obviously housing prices continue to increase. So it's getting harder and harder for households to meet the demands of that housing cost. And we're seeing more and more burdened households that have to pay more than a third of their monthly income towards housing. And we're trying to balance that out so that we can provide more affordable housing. And JT, I'll let you chime in.
Yeah. Hi, Shawnee. I provided a response to your question also in the chat, but I was going to add, Ben, to what you were saying. Part of the economic development strategic plan analysis that has happened so far has made note that you know, housing prices are increasing faster than real wages in our community, and so that's really exacerbating the affordability challenges. And I think another reason why our strategic plan has to be so data driven in the limited resources that we can put towards economic development, how is it going to really contribute to growing wages in a way that will, you know, most significantly impact that cost challenge. So my question back to Shawnee was, she mentioned the economic development strategic meeting the other night. There was one earlier this week on Monday night with the Pantops CAC, and I wasn't sure if that's maybe what she's referring to. And I see a hand.
Hello again. There were a number of us at the meeting on the 25th that started at 4 p.m. And a number of our friends who could not attend had been hoping to read a transcript of what we actually heard that night. So I didn't know if that transcript was available of that particular evening for me to refer them to.
Yes, so we did not record that meeting, but I'd be happy to share the slides and happy to meet with anybody else that that maybe missed it or and has any follow-up questions. Happy to engage further on it.
Thank you. Okay. I think I'm not seeing any more questions coming in. Thank you for sticking with us. At times it felt like a dinner table conversation or a lunch table conversation. But I think we got a really a good sense of some great questions. And thank you, JT, for joining us. JT, the Deputy Director of the Economic Development Office. And everyone else here, thank you for participating. Ben, do you want to close us out?
Sure. There we go. Here's our last slide. So just another reminder, the hub for AC44 is at our Engage Albemarle website. That's engage.albemarle.org. So under the Engage site, we have dedicated web pages for AC44, and you'll find a separate page for each of the project phases. And again, these chapters are being published to the current phase 3 portion of the website. So you'll see links for the draft chapters that have already been published, and we'll continue to update this website. On the right-hand side of the page, we have upcoming events. So we'll let you know what the upcoming work sessions will be with our Planning Commission, our Board of Supervisors, our future lunch and learn dates, and our other periodic engagement events. So again, we thank you all for attending. We are making these lunch and learn sessions available on our website because they're recorded. So for those who haven't gotten to see them, we encourage you all to share information and encourage others to visit our website and maybe look at those videos if they didn't have a chance to attend those sessions. So thank you for being here. Appreciate your input.